Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry, and today we start a new series doing the top 100 Bengals players of all time. Now, this list, I'm going to lay it out first before we get to the first 8 players on the list, starting at 100. But the process that I went through, and I've got a whole spreadsheet of over 200 former Bengals players that are scored and ranked based on their longevity with the team, how good they were, and that could be very subjective, right? What I'm using is Pro Football References Hall of Fame monitor, which scores every single player to see if they are worthy of the Hall of Fame based on players that have made it into the Hall and how they stack up against them. I'm also using Pro Football References Approximate Value, which takes in everything from stats to games played to how good the team was and how the team's success. If you started all 16 games and the team went to the playoffs, let's say you're Russell Bodine, who did not make this top 100 list, but you get credit for being the center despite being the worst player on the offensive line, or maybe even the entire roster at the time. But the idea is that those guys should get credit. And if a team goes to deep into the playoffs, into the Super Bowl, yada, yada, they're going to get more credit for that. So there is team success built into this formula. Games played, how good you were in the games played for the Bengals. I also take in the career that you had outside of the Bengals. A lot of these guys played for other teams, continued their career, and their legacy from there grew as an NFL player. And that may not directly impact, and it's all weighted. So this is just a smaller portion as I got to the end of that. But that legacy bonus or that legacy score helps guys out like a Dave Lapham, who didn't make a Pro Bowl as a player, but is the voice of the Cincinnati Bengals and has been with the organization for over 30 years now, is somebody that, you know, we care for as fans and should be on the list of greatest Bengals of all time. Not he would make it just on his playing ability, but how high. That's why I wanted the legacy bonus in there. And that's my own personal score based on talking to people, other fans, and just being observant of this fan base for as long as I've been doing this, which is now going to go into 16 NFL seasons of creating content, focused mostly on the Cincinnati Bengals because I have done other things. But this is going to spit out the top 100 players, and it may be controversial. It may help out guys like Giovanni Bernard, who was a fan favorite. Was he a great player? No. But the legacy bonus is going to help those guys and hurt others when we get there, guys like Carson Palmer. Now, the last caveat to this, the last rule we have, you had to have played for the Bengals for 2 years. So Terrell Owens, you're not going to make it. James Harrison, you're not going to make it because the score put them too high. But guys like Charlie Joyner, Coy Bacon, you guys will make the list. You'll see them eventually. I did this for a few reasons. I didn't want the TOs to end up too high. While they were one of the greatest, easily, if we just were the best players to ever wear Bengals uniforms, Bengals stripes, those guys would make the list, clearly. But we're not doing that. We're doing the greatest Bengals, top 100 greatest Bengals of all time. So not only did you have to play for 2 seasons, you have to also be retired, or at least inactive. So a guy like Geno Atkins, who we don't know if he actually ever did retire officially, but is clearly not on a roster and has no plans of playing. We'll see him weeks from now. But guys like Andy Dalton, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, not going to make this list. That'll be something we revisit in 5 years or so. Let's get enough guys to retire. There's enough guys from the past core of players that would deserve to make this list. But guys like AJ Green that just retired as a Bengal, was it last year? He's clearly on the list and should be very, very high. I plan to do this over the course of about 14 or 15 episodes. We'll see how many of the just missed the cut, the honorable mentions we'll get to. And it's an undrafted player. And he played in the last generation, I would say, of the Bengals. Not the current, the previous under Marvin Lewis. And that is number 57, linebacker, Vincent Ray.
Under pressure, and he's going to be sacked.
Moving the way he used to. Flacco in the grab, puts it up for grabs, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Ray, Vincent Ray.
He went undrafted in 2010, coming out of Duke. Vincent Ray signed with the Bengals and was waived after that first training camp and was placed on the practice squad. But he returned to play in weeks 15 and 16 to end the 2010 season. He wouldn't get his first chance to really show what he can do until 2013, that Thursday night football game against the Miami Dolphins when Ray Maluga went down, and when Vontaze Burfict went down in 2014. Vincent Ray stepped in for both, finishing both seasons and playing admirably, showing he can line up at every linebacker position, and ended up playing 128 career games for the Bengals, starting just 50 of them as a reserve linebacker, but playing well in his 50 starts. He had 6 career sacks. You may see them all in this highlight reel right here. He also had 13 tackles for a loss, 5 interceptions, and forced 2 fumbles. He also played in 5 playoff games for the Bengals, starting 2 in the 2014 playoff game. He had 11 combined tackles and a forced fumble. The Bengals did lose all of those games in that era, but Vincent Ray was a solid to good player for them and a great reserve linebacker that, when called upon, did his job.
Blue Devil leads Cincinnati in tackles.
Rivers rifles. Intercepted. Cincinnati is going to win it.
The 6-foot, 245-pound linebacker probably had his best career year in 2014, replacing Vontaze Burfict, where he amassed 121 combined tackles, 61 solo tackles. But it was his post-playing career, where he's still with the Bengals now, and that really is a sign of what Vinny Ray meant to the team, as he's now the team chaplain since 2021. He was always known as a good guy and team leader, even as a reserve. Vinny Ray played for the Bengals for 9 years after being undrafted and earns the spot to start our kickoff at number 100. But number 99 had the exact opposite expectations. He was a former first-round pick that struggled to get on the field, not due to talent, but injuries. This former Pro Bowler checks in at number 99, but I imagine he could have ended up being much, much higher. That's tight end Tyler Eifert. The 2013 first-round pick out of Notre Dame, former John Mackey and Ozzie Newsome Award first team and second team All-American, made the Pro Bowl in 2015 for the Cincinnati Bengals after leading the league amongst tight ends in touchdowns. He was a red zone, high-pointing weapon. You could throw it up, and Tyler Eifert would come down with it. He also ran routes and moved very fluidly for a guy his size. You really don't see above-the-rim type tight ends anymore in this era. They usually move like he does in his routes that we've seen in these clips here. But what could have been for Tyler Eifert, as he only ended up starting 41 of his 74 games played in his 7 years in Cincinnati, catching 221 passes for 2,501 yards and 26 touchdowns. When he was finally healthy in that 2015 season, this Bengals offense took a major step due to his impact.
Over the top to Eifert. He's across for the touchdown.
Eifert's best year was clearly 2015, where he made the Pro Bowl, playing in 13 games, starting 12, catching 52 balls for 615 yards and 13 scores.
I think he's the main reason why they're the second best team in touchdown conversion inside the red zone.
That year's team was loaded at wide receiver and running back. And when Andy Dalton needed to play in the red zone, it was Tyler Eifert.
2nd and 10. He's going punt fake to the end zone. He goes. It's Eifert with the triple crown tonight.
The Bengals could split Eifert out wide, have him run one-on-one routes versus corners, safeties, linebackers. It wasn't just red zone work. He was an outside vertical threat as well.
Pass. What a move by the big tight end. Faking the out route, jumping inside of Flowers, and getting the ball from Dalton and then realizing he's got to get his feet down, and he does it perfectly.
He's a matchup nightmare. Can't put a safety on him, can't put a linebacker on him, definitely can't put a corner on him. So, he's just continuing to be a matchup problem, just someone who wakes up in the morning.
Well, I think he's big. He's long, he's big.
He's so big.
He's big, physical.
He's fast.
And a lot faster than what people give him credit for.
You got to be big enough to block, but also agile enough to go up and make plays and dive and all that kind of stuff.
In his 7 years with the Bengals, Eifert only started more than 4 NFL games for them in 2 seasons.
8 more yards to be within range. Here's Eifert. Oh, what a catch by Tyler Eifert.
But it was 2 injuries that really sapped Tyler Eifert's potential. In his sophomore season, in the first game, he dislocated his elbow, ruining his second season. And then after the 2015 campaign, he hurt his ankle in the Pro Bowl games. Talk about bad luck.
Touchdown!
I don't know why they keep sitting covering you, boy. I don't either. What I tell you, man? What I tell you, boy?
When you see 85 in that Cincinnati Bengals jersey, you know he's going to get out and he's going to be that highlight reel.
A lot of those clips there of Tyler Eifert were taken from the NFL Top 100 series, and that was in 2016, where he was ranked 44th heading into the 2016 season, coming off that 2015 year. Man, if that doesn't tell you how good he was then and what the league thought of him and his potential. As we start our run of cornerbacks for the Bengals, number 98 is Torrey James. Torrey James played 11 seasons in the National Football League after being a second-round pick, 44th overall in the 1996 draft by the Denver Broncos, where he won 2 Super Bowls. He went on to play for the Oakland Raiders, the Bengals, and then finishing with the New England Patriots. Played for the Bengals from 2003 until 2006, where he made his only career Pro Bowl in 2004. That 2004 season ended up being the best of James' career with 8 interceptions, playing and starting in all 16 games. He also had 2 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery. Torrey James was one of the free agent signings that Marvin Lewis brought to Cincinnati, when he was turning the tide and turning everything around, and before they got back to the playoffs in 2005 on the Carson Palmer era. But James and Deltha O'Neal were just getting their hands on so many passes. I think James went from being known as a solid corner to having his best career year in that 2004 season. And it really turned out to be probably the best free agent signing they've ever had up until that point in their franchise history. But speaking of that duo at cornerback, it just worked out this way. Number 97 is the other half, Deltha O'Neal.
Watch the comfort level of Carson Palmer, and then watch Dante Culpepper trying to stick throws into cover 2. The corner dropped off, the safety came over. Either guy could have eventually got it.
He's going to be picked off 5 times today. 3 by Deltha O'Neal, 7 by
The former first-round pick traded from the Denver Broncos to the Cincinnati Bengals in 2004 as the Broncos moved up in the draft in the first round. Bit of a trend here. Torrey James, then Deltha O'Neal. O'Neal would make the all-cool team if it was just based on the name alone. Deltha O'Neal would record 10 interceptions for the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2005 year when that defense was just racking in the turnovers.
O'Neal won this battle with Peyton Manning. He was outside. Manning said, they're playing pass. We're going to run it. And then he timed it perfectly at the very last second. Can't get away from that play, can't check out, and it's another negative.
The 10 interceptions in 2005 by Deltha O'Neal would lead the league, tied with Ty Law, but would break the franchise record of 9 held by Ken Riley in the 1976 season.
And now may be the leader in the NFL and returns to the 43.
17-13 late third. Fry goes back, and Deltha Dawn. Deltha O'Neal picks it off. The Cincinnati picked off Minnesota 5 times, Chicago 5 times, Green Bay 5 times, and in this trip through the Norris Division, 3 times against the Lions. That's Deltha O'Neal.
Snap back, under pressure, and he gets out of the first one. Throws it, picked off!
Yeah.
Big pick by the Cincinnati Bengals. The pressure was there.
Denver would return the favor a few plays later when an interception by Delta O'Neal led to a field goal and a 10-0 Bengals lead.
O'Neal would wear Bengals stripes for 4 seasons, appearing in 55 games, starting 39 and recording 16 interceptions, along with 1 touchdown, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries.
Walking in for the touchdown, Delta O'Neal.
And even when the Eagles were threatening, Detmer, that's a nice play by Delta O'Neal. Bengals wanted to get to 500.
Yes, if that's how we're kicking this list off with Delta O'Neal and Torrey James being in the back half of the 90s, even Tyler Eifert, and we're talking about all 3 of these guys made Pro Bowls. 100 made sense to me with Vinny Ray. It's a good top 100. I'm very excited for the rest of this. We've got 3 more players, I think, today. Don't make me do math. Next one up is number 96, staying at cornerback. How? How do they have this many corners? It's Eric Thomas.
Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They settle for a field goal. It's 10-7 Seattle. Kemp in the end zone, picked off by Eric Thomas. Zone, and for a change, Tommy, there is actually. This really is nice coverage. Eric Thomas makes the play.
The former 2nd-round pick in the 1987 NFL draft by the Cincinnati Bengals, 49th overall, Eric Thomas was very similar to Tyler Eifert, and they believe this guy had huge, huge upside. Didn't start much his rookie year, 3 starts, 1 interception, but it was the 1988 season where he started all 16 games, recorded 7 interceptions, and made it to his first Pro Bowl.
And he's down at the 25-yard line by Largent.
The field, they put another wide receiver. 1 running back in behind. Kelly goes back to throw. Figures it downfield. It's intercepted at the 30. At the 15, at the 10, at the 5, dives to the 4. Phillips.
Average, and that is measly. That is. First and 10 from the 27, and Moon going deep, looking for Hill, and picking it off.
The ball severely underthrown, and Eric Thomas able to step right in front of it.
Eric Thomas was one of the main faces for the Bengals going from that 1987 season to the Super Bowl and the SWAT secondary in 1988, jumping on the scene and playing as well as he did in year 2. He would never match that. He had an injury in the 1990 season, but still ended up playing 6 years in Cincinnati with 80 total appearances and 68 starts and 15 interceptions. That's 3 Pro Bowl corners for the Bengals and Torrey James, Delta O'Neal, and Eric Thomas right off the bat. Really good list. Also, obviously, Tyler Eifert was a Pro Bowler as well. All high draft picks. The next guy was the 2nd overall pick in the 1972 draft for the Bengals. But we're moving to defensive end. We're talking about Sherman White.
Led by number 83, Sherman White. The Bengals thwarted the Raiders at the pass and chopped down their highly touted running attack and tied a club record with 6 sacks of quarterbacks. And number 83, Sherman White, the Bengals' number 1 draft pick for 1972.
Sherman White would only play 4 seasons for the Bengals before going on to play 8 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, playing in 52 games, starting 51. But he would also be the Pro Football Writers of America 1972 Defensive Rookie of the Year, after Sherman White recorded what is now considered 4.5 sacks. It was an unofficial stat at the time sacks were, but he had 25 sacks in those 4 years.
An amazing pressure drive.
First came the Jets with Joe Namath on the bench. His replacement, Al Woodall, was continually hammered into the AstroTurf by a devastating pass rush. The Bengals came on to win. The ends were Captain Royce Berry, number 82, and Big Sherman White, number 83. In the middle is number 66, rugged Bill Berge. Still, the Bengals defense hung tough.
The 6'5", 250-pound defensive end played under Paul Brown in Cincinnati and would lead the defense to 2 playoff seasons in his 4 years with Cincinnati. Number 95, Sherman White, first round pick of the Bengals. We're going to go back to another former Bronco, switch it up and go on the other side of the trenches and get our first offensive lineman of this entire list at 94. It's Pat Mattson.
The Bengals gained an early 9-0 lead when Essex Johnson followed number 73 Pat Mattson to a touchdown that sent the old mentor reeling for an answer.
Number 73 Pat Mattson would play 7 seasons in Cincinnati, appearing in 90 games for the Bengals and starting 77 between 1968 and 1974.
Part of the reason was the play of the Bengal offensive line. Watch number 73, guard Pat Mattson, take out the cornerback, number 44, Lee Callan. Chuck Allen, number 58, came across to make the tackle, but Cincinnati was moving the ball, and they were doing it on the ground.
That 68 season was the Bengals' inaugural year, and Mattson was an entrenched starter from 68 to 74, where the team saw 2 Central Division titles.
Out and swept right again, and once more it was a key block by Mattson that sprung him.
So our first offensive lineman makes the list in Pat Mattson. We've had 3 corners, we've had a linebacker, we've had an offensive lineman, and a tight end. And now at number 93 is another tight end, Tony McGee.
Tight end Tony McGee, number 82. NFL teams don't draft second-rounders to sit on the bench. Still, one of the most pleasant surprises was how fast and how well the rookie adjusted to life in the NFL. Tony McGee's name is one that should appear in the Bengals lineup for many years to come.
And Tony McGee's name would appear for the Bengals for a long time. A 9-year player in Cincinnati, seeing 136 appearances and starting 134 of them. If you're wondering why he's so high on this list, that is a big reason. Not only did he have a big rookie year, catching 44 balls for 525 yards in that 1993 season, he caught 299 balls in Cincinnati for 3,795 yards and 20 touchdowns. He'd go on and play 2 seasons in Dallas and have a cup of coffee with the New York Giants, but in total, 11 years in the National Football League.
Big play. Quick pass here, flat, caught, pulled in by McGee. Midfield line, stays on his feet, down near sideline, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, and bumped out of bounds at the 4-yard line.
They get the ball back under 3 minutes to go. Look at this. Heave-ho. What goes up must come down. McGee says, thank you very much.
McGee's best season would come in 1995, where he started all 16 games, seeing 92 targets, catching 55 passes for 754 yards and 4 touchdowns.
McGee, I can fly. Right over.
So those are numbers 93 through 100 on the greatest Bengals of all time. Like I said, I plan on doing this in 14 episodes. So I'll give you maybe 14 honorable mentions. Number 114 is Carl Zander, who we just brought up in episode 91 because he wore 91. So how about I mention the 115 guy, Lee Johnson, punter for 11 seasons in Cincinnati. We got some interesting names between the 100. They're all players you'll remember, but between 101 and 115 are a lot of guys that I think you probably will assume made this list. A few of them, I think some people would be like, hey, that guy should be nowhere near the list. So I think it'll be fun as we go through the honorable mentions, but Friday's episode will be 8 more as we get into the 80s of the greatest Bengals of all time. This is Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry. Until next time, Hooday.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.